Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now, we are investigating the Dublin Murder Squad,
The
and
Dublin
we
Murder
are
Squad.
finishing up the plot of Faithful Place,
Faithful Place.
a book where Laura was right from the start.
A book where I was right, and this book made me cry.
This
I,
book is devastating. It's so sad.
I freaking loved it.
It's
I thought it
probably,
was
yeah,
great.
it's so funny because like this is like we talked about this last week where it's kind of her first whodunit non-thriller, but it's
Hmm.
probably the like it's just it stands out as one of the
Yeah.
best of the series. I think even moving forward of like Faithful
Hmm.
Place is really where it's at, and it is like the pinnacle. So
It's so good. I'm just going to give you a little insight. Uh, into like some feedback that I've gotten on this book. Listeners, Hannah knows this already, but listeners, I started a part-time job at a local library almost a month ago now, and I'm really, really enjoying it. But I was reading this book on my break, and the head librarian, who is like my supervisor there, she noticed that I was reading this, and this is a very well-read woman, especially when it comes to mysteries. And she said, "Oh, those are rough." She said, "I like mysteries, but all of those are incredibly depressing." And I was like, well, that tracks,
yeah.
because about a chapter later, I was like, I can't read this in public right now on my break because I may cry. The,
Yeah. Ugh, and I
oh,
don't know. I feel so
I
bad for
love it though.
Holly.
Oh
Holly
my
who
gosh, we'll get there, but what a rough book. I feel that I have so many feelings for everyone,
yeah.
honestly. Like, oh, we'll get
It's so
there.
bad
We'll get
because like you
there.
do get
Oh my
frustrated with
gosh.
you get frustrated with people, but you also like
You can
understand
get
why they
frustrated with
did that.
anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but
Yeah,
before we
there's
get
people
into
like
it,
I get frustrated with Holly even. Oh, I gotta stop.
um, so before we dive into it, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Okay, Hannah. So I had the absolute delight of being asked to be a beta reader for Jonathan Nevair's new book, The Curse of Dragontail Island.
Mhm.
So fans of the podcast or listeners of the podcast or people that follow me online will know that I am a big fan of Jonathan Nevair's work. He has wonderful sci-fi books. He has the Lillian Renault series, Agent Renault series that is super fun.
Which
It's
we've
like
covered on the podcast.
spy-fi thriller. Yes. Jonathan has been on before. He also has the Windtide series, the Windtide Saga, which is a trilogy that is really sweeping and very reminiscent of like Dune mixed with Becky Chambers a little bit and just a lot of political and environmental things going on. I just really love his sci-fi work. So when he asked me to beta read The Curse of Dragontail Island, which is his first foray into fantasy, I'm not gonna lie, I was very nervous because I was like, uh-oh, is this gonna be a good idea to switch genres? Jonathan, I am unsure on this. I was pleasantly surprised. This is such a fun story. It's lost lost romance, a lost love story about a pirate, and he's recruited to join up to find this magical island and be on this crew. He kind of has a situation years in the past where his crew is disbanded for reasons that seem shady, and they are, we
Okay.
learn. But years and years later, he is recruited to join on this quest to find Dragontail Island because he is a very he's a very well known pirate. And so he goes on this quest and he gets the gang back together, so to say, of his crew. And we have shenanigans, we have lots of action, we have politics, we have a lot of magic and interesting world building that's occurring. We have adorable creatures called Noxie, which are like bard like otters that are involved in this, and they have like innate magic and everything too. There's just so much happening in this, and it's a long book. I'm not gonna lie, it is a long book, but I kind of wish it was longer because it was so good. And I was just very impressed that Jonathan was able to kind of flip the switch and jump into fantasy like this because I would almost call this a bit of like a romantasy-ish book.
Ooh.
Yeah, because there's romance involved. We have lost love, we have rekindling of love, we have some other side love stories happening, and there's just a lot of really good side characters. We have a lot of humor. It's, I feel like if you're into like pirate stories, like maybe Treasure Island, those type of stories where you have like swashbuckling adventure type things, you really like this. But this is so very much the heart of a Becky Chambers or Travis Baldree book where you have fantasy creatures like orcs and gnomes and uh, elves that are dealing with situations in this world. And like I said, it really creative characters too, creatures like Noxie that I just absolutely love. But yeah, it's a really, really good book. And I can't wait for other people to get their hands on it because it comes out the end of this month on January 20th. So
Oh,
people, you need to pre-order it now. It's very good. I can't recommend it enough. And I really just I'm kind of just impressed that he pulled this off. It's a really big sweeping plot and everything, and it's just a ton of fun and a lot about like the importance of helping others. And yeah, very impressed. So go check this book out. You will like it, and that's all I have to say about that. Honestly, that
perfect.
I'm impressed. So Jonathan, keep up the good work. The other thing I have been consuming recently, I watched Common Side Effects. Have you seen that, Hannah?
I have not. What's that about?
On HBO. So this show, Common Side Effects, it's in adult animation, and I I think the people that put together King of the Hill have to be involved because one of the voices is the guy that is the voice of Hank Hill. So, anyways, the plot of this show is that Marshall, this man named Marshall, discovers this really rare blue angel mushroom that has these healing effects that are it's basically able to like heal any ailment or illness at all. Like anything. You can be horribly wounded. If you have some of this mushroom, like it's going to heal you pretty quickly. Or if you have Alzheimer's disease, you can have some of this mushroom and it will start to cure you. So he comes across this and he is very much like one he's very much someone who is not trusting of big pharma,
Okay.
and he comes across his friend from high school, Frances, a girl that he likely had a crush on in high school, and they just bump into each other at this place where he's going to protest Big Pharma, and she is going there because she works for Big Pharma.
Oh, good.
And he reveals to her that he's found this mushroom and that he really wants to use it to help people. He knows about like the effects of it and how it can help all these people, and he's really unsure how to get it like widespread and who should access it, those types of things. And she very much wants to promote herself and her career with Big Pharma. So she is not entirely honest about where she works or
Got
what
it.
she's doing, helping him out, etc. And as you can expect, things kind of go off the rails quickly because when Big Pharma finds out about the mushroom, they want their hands on it. Other people find out about it, they want to start spreading it too. It's a very interesting show for in my mind for adult animation. I wasn't expecting it to be this deep because it's really delving into what do we have to, like even if you're distrustful of corporations and big pharma, which I do think that we should be questioning billionaires, we should be questioning the elite, we should be questioning corporations. However, we do get to a point in this show where Marshall realizes that even if he wants to, with a small group of friends, like spread this out to people, they don't have the ability to do any kind of testing on the
Right.
product, or they don't have the money to create any kind of distribution of it or anything. And so they do run into snags in this process where they are questioning the ethics of what they're doing. And so there's ethical dilemmas on both sides. And I think it's interesting to have a character recognize that even though they find something like Big Pharma or a company that's involved with pharmaceuticals to be very, or the government to be very unethical, there's also ethics that come into play when we're trying to avoid the government and
Right.
pharmaceuticals or medicine protocols, and that there's a reason that these protocols are kind of put into place. And a lot of it is due to trying to maintain safety and science and record information about products in a safe way. So it was really interesting to me, and it's just kind of fun too to have a show that's like pretty like relevant and also kind of a little bit zany, but dealing with these issues that I think we all need to be questioning, like uh,
Yeah.
being cautious when it comes to the types of people that we are trusting implicitly or the types of groups that we're trusting implicitly, and also questioning, like, if we don't trust X, Y, or Z group, why is that? And maybe we should dig a little deeper as it, to like, why is it that we distrust big pharma? Like, I know I've just thrown out big pharma repeatedly, but like I said, I do think there are regulations and things like that that they have to go through, or at least there were. Who knows anymore?
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
But
yeah. At the time, yeah.
there used to be in the past regulations and uh, different methods, and like the scientific method we used to have to follow, research we used to have to do. Who knows what happens anymore? But in the US, this is. But there used to be, different protocols and different steps that we would have to take to have products widely available to people. And they would require testing and different ways to go about getting these products released. They weren't immediately released, etc. So I do think it's like an interesting look at who do we trust? Why is it that we don't trust certain groups? Should we be questioning ourselves and looking more into why we don't trust certain
Certain.
regulations and
Yeah.
things like that? And I think especially now when we are in an age of like such misinformation with science, especially, it's very important to be questioning, like, okay, if you don't believe in this thing, why is that? And are there reasons that these protocols are followed in order to keep people safe, a la vaccination schedules, etc.?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just thought it was a fun show and
I
really
think that's
relevant.
nice because it's not saying like one side is technically bad. Like it's saying like,
No,
oh,
it didn't pick a
we
side.
should have criticisms for all, but
Hmm.
like let's make sure that we're thinking through what we're choosing and why. So I do like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it did a good job of it. It didn't make either side out to be a quote unquote hero, because I think Marshall as a character, he started off very anti big pharma, but as he kind of went along, he himself was having his eyes opened as to, okay, well, even though I have good intentions, I don't have the ability, me and my small group of people here, we don't have the ability to go about distributing this product in a safe way. We don't know enough about it. It could be harming people if we're just randomly giving it to people. We don't know the side effects of these things. So it was really interesting to see that kind of come about. And I wouldn't say, like, I think I maybe in my description have been fairly kind to government and like corporations in like my description, but I will say, like, we should be questioning corporations. That's not what I'm saying. Especially, they do have a vested interest in just making money. So
Right.
always those things should be questioned. However, I think that the show also was pointing that out, that, we shouldn't be trusting CEOs. They obviously only care about themselves, and that is
Right.
portrayed in the show as well. So there were people that were doing obvious like criminal acts because they were trying to cover up things because they didn't want this drug to be, or this mushroom to be released on a wide scale, because they wanted to continue to peddle certain things, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it did a really good job showing kind of a both sides situation, a yes and that yes, things can be unethical, but we also have to question whether the ways that we go about things are ethical too, even if we have good intentions. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really good show, and I think that there's going to be a second season coming out soon, so I'll be curious how they go forward with that. But yeah, really fun show. Hannah,
Good.
what have you been reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So for reading, I've been reading quite a little or quite a bit lately. I feel like I've been going through like a huge like new year, new me reading thing, which of course,
Hmm.
you get to have ebbs and flows to your reading. I think
Sure.
that that's normal, but right now I'm on an upswing. So, I did finish the book that Laura and I said we were going to buddy read together, and Laura had to read Jonathan Nevair's book, which is good, and I prefer you read it. But I did
Hmm.
finish The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones.
I'll
Um,
get to it. I have had I had to beta read, and then the holidays and everything. It was just like not a great time. And now we've got a couple of podcast books that I'm going to be reading, so I'll get to it. I
well,
promise.
and also like in Laura's defense, I kind of forgot to tell her I started reading it via audiobook. So the way
Yeah, you
I
got a
read
head
this
start on me.
the way I actually started this book was I got about 40% of the way through audiobook, and I realized like the holiday season was a terrible time to listen to this book via audio because I don't think I was actually comprehending anything. Like there were certain characters that would be brought up and I was like, "Who are you talking about?" And so I got 40% of the way through this audiobook and said, I need to read the physical copy and I can't do this
Hmm.
anymore. And I just quit. Like, and it helped that the library said, we need that copy back. You can't borrow it on Libby anymore. It's so
Hmm.
popular, Hannah. But I started reading it and like this book is so good. And it kind of made me realize that like, I haven't really read capital L literature books in a while and like really did a deep dive on like I want to immerse myself in this book and really understand what I'm reading in like a very analytical way. And I did that with this book. I had tabs. I tabbed different sections I loved. I reread certain sections if I wasn't focused enough. And I really just like kind of used this book as a like, oh, this like go back to your roots of college and really you do a deep dive into this book. And I enjoyed it so much. The storytelling Stephen Graham Jones creates is just so impressive. I love this book so much. I'm so impressed. I like there I don't want to say anything too much because I don't want to ruin it for people, but like
Hmm. Hmm.
the decisions he makes for his vampires is amazing. Like it's just so well done. There is just like the way Stephen Graham Jones does his world building and the decisions he makes for how to create these things and the way they interact with one another and what it means about race is like so impressive. Like there's just so many details
Hmm.
about this that it's so well done. Um Loved the backdrop. Um and loved just like the bookend. Like every time there was a moment with this book where I was like, I'm not expecting. Like I was just there were so many moments where I was surprised, and that was fun to see because I don't think I've been
Yeah.
surprised by books very often. Um, and
Do
then
you think that
another
this was like a book that kind of like you said you've been having an upswing? Do you think it was a book that like kind of was a launch pad for you? Because I feel like sometimes that happens to me with books where I'm like in a slump and then I read one and it's like, boom, I'm back at it, baby, because this
Mhm.
helped me.
I do think it definitely like started like got me excited to read again and read physically again because I think I've done a lot of audiobooks in the last year,
Mhm.
which again, I think that that is fully reading and like not downtrodden like my year of audiobooks, but it is like I'm in the car a lot more. I'm driving 40 minutes
Mhm.
to and from work each day. So like listening to an audiobook is much more reasonable for me. And then sometimes when I get home, I'm like, do I want to read a book? And I'm like, yeah, I do want to read. I do actually want to sit
Mhm.
down and read these like physical copies of these books. So it was a ton of fun. And then a book from 2025 that I haven't talked about. First Time Caller by BK Borison. This is a romance that a lot of people are reading right now. It seems like
Yeah.
I've seen this book all over. And it
Hmm.
was very fun. It's about a very jaded radio host who hosts like a love talk show. Very Sleepless in Seattle vibes, where one night a woman's daughter calls into a radio show saying she's worried about her mother's love life, and they bring the mother on the show to talk about her love life as she tries to like find romance, and sparks fly with her and the radio host.
Oh, cool.
Um, Very cute. I liked this book. I thought it was kind of like a unique storytelling just because we don't really talk about radio shows anymore, so that was a little funny to be like, oh yes, this viral interview from a radio talk show that's like
Mhm.
on very late at night. I was just like, that's a little silly to me, but I digress. That's fine. I can, it's a romance. You could kind of just forget that that's not exactly believable anymore.
I mean,
But
I feel like a lot of the things, like the careers in romances and rom-coms in general, are not believable.
right. And so I really liked the Lucy character. That's the mom. Like she was really interesting to me because she was like a mechanic, which is not something you see in female characters very often.
Hmm.
She was a teenage mom. She like didn't end up with the dad, but they have like a very healthy relationship. The dad is married to a man now and they live next door to each other and like have this beautiful like found family to aspect. She doesn't talk to
Hmm.
her like parents anymore. I really liked her character. I thought she was unique. I don't know if cared about the reason her love interest was scared of love. Like, do you ever get those
Okay.
where you're reading it and you're like, I actually think you need to get over this? Like,
I
I
mean,
actually don't
yes,
think it's that much trauma, and you should probably just be with the person you like because this
I
is
often
weird.
get frustrated with romances because they have that like the moment where they get back together or they get together finally after all the like waiting, and then all of a sudden there has to be some kind of snag
Yes.
right about at the 75% mark. Oh,
Yes.
75 to 80% mark that throws things off and we have to be like, "Oh no, they're not going to be together? What? There's only 50 pages left. How could this happen?" And then it's usually something absolutely stupid.
Yeah, and this one was to me kind of silly. Like I was reading it and I was like, I
Hmm.
don't believe this. I think you could probably get over it. You seem fine. Like,
Hmm.
and that just was strange to me. But it was a good time. I really did like the Lucy character. There's a second one in the series. I would definitely listen to it, and there's going to be a third one. So, no qualms about it. But yeah, that was one I read in 2025 to round it out.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's been happening. And then for watching, Laura, we did a couple different double features recently, and one of them was a Hallmark Channel original miniseries called The Magical Legend of the Leprechauns.
Okay.
And this is a 3-hour
What?
miniseries. This is and it was created in 1999. It's a fantasy television miniseries starring Randy Quaid, who's Dennis Quaid's brother.
I know who Randy Quaid is from Christmas Vacation.
Oh my gosh. He plays a love interest and that buckled my mind
Oh
because I
my.
was
The
and like
guy that said shitter's full is the love interest.
and his love interest is very pretty. And I was just sitting there, but it was like a Anne from Arrested Development, like her.
Pan.
Um, and it has Kieran Culkin in it. And it also has Whoopi Goldberg as a magical
What
creature
a
named the
wild ride Kieran Culkin's career has been.
I mean, he was a teenager when he was in this film.
But
Um,
still,
it was so wild. But this is a retelling of Romeo and Juliet with leprechauns and fairies.
obviously, obviously,
And,
yes.
and every time the fairies came on the scene, I said, I literally saw them and I said, I don't know what the implication is that all of these fairies appear to be gay, but that feels pointed. Then the leprechauns would
Okay.
get into fights with them, and I would go, well, that's a hate crime. But also, the leprechauns were horrible Irish stereotype. So this is my sister-in-law's like beloved. You know how you have like beloved movies when you were growing up, where like you grow up and you're like,
Sure.
oh, I was obsessed with that. This was very much her obsession. Where like my
Oh.
husband did not watch it with us, but he walked in and he was like, I remember this movie.
Oh my.
And she went on record that she did not care about the Randy Quaid storyline. Like she was always like, I wasn't here for the human storyline. I was here for the
She was
leprechauns and
very
the
much
Romeo and
for the
Juliet.
she was very much for the leprechaun versus fairies of it
Yes.
all.
But it was very funny to watch. The guy who played the Romeo, whose name is Mickey in the movie, he looked so much like Glenn Powell that like every time he appeared on screen, like just
Oh.
like he had Glenn Powell's jawline, I would go, Glenn Powell, what are you doing here? Get out of this movie. And it was a wild ride. Whoopi Goldberg's character is named the Great Banshee or the Grand Banshee, and the amount of times that they say Grand Banshee is too many times. Like they needed to give her a
Okay.
nickname and they just did it. And there's moments where she's just like floating over a field watching fairies and leprechauns fight each other.
That's weird.
It was a very weird movie and yeah, you would have to be there, but it's a wild
You
ride.
would have to be there. Hannah's like, You're giving me a weird look. I'm
Laura's like, I
having a
don't
hard
know how to
time
react to
explaining
this.
this. I
It was
don't know how to
very
react to this
enjoyable.
because it sounds wild, like it didn't happen, but I know it
Our
did.
My favorite part of this was under reception on Wikipedia, the first sentence is the film was not well received.
I, I could guess that.
Um, but it was a Hallmark original, like back when Hallmark made like relatively like deeper content. So it was just very
Such as the
funny.
baboon heart. Yes.
Yes, the boom heart, and it just had like so many people in it that you're sitting there like, okay, I guess like,
Sure.
um. So that was one of the ones that I recently revisited. Another one, this is what got us on Magical Legend of the Leprechauns. Well, we've been holding out on watching this one. We just finally did
Mhm.
it. There is a movie called Dragonheart. Do you know anything about
Oh,
this movie? Yeah,
yes. Mhm.
have you seen it?
Yeah, years and years ago.
Yeah. So Dragonheart used to be one of my favorite movies in all of existence. Like I would
Hmm.
watch it on repeat. And it is a movie where uh Sean Connery as a dragon
Yep. You've talked about
splits.
this before too. Yep.
Oh, okay. Splits a piece of his heart and gives it to David Thewlis. And
Yes.
David
Hmm.
Thewlis is an evil king, and the rest of the
Hmm.
movie is Dennis Quaid, the Quaid brothers. There's a
So this
through
is the
line.
Quaid double feature, is what you're telling
This is well,
me.
we watched it on two different nights, but like yeah, the Quaid feature. Dennis Quaid is a
Got you.
knight who wants to kill all of the dragons because he blames the dragons for turning David Thewlis evil. Um, it also has um
Okay.
not Draco, but the other Malfoy. He's in it as well. Jason
Lucius?
Isaacs. Yeah, Jason Isaacs is in
Yeah.
this movie, and I
What a
made a
wild
joke of
ride his career has been.
I know because we were sitting there watching it, and I was like, "Do you ever think that he and David Thewlis was like were like, remember when we were in Dragonheart together, and then we were in the Harry Potter movie? It's like wild time." Um, but that movie came out
Yeah.
in 1996, which makes sense on why I loved it so much because we were watching it, and I was like, there was a young man who was like a young David Thewlis person, and I didn't realize it was two different actors because I was young enough when I watched it to not realize how actors worked.
Oh, I thought you were going to say who's that close.
No, they looked very much different. And I remember when I was younger, I was confused, but I was just like, that actor changed. And I like
I guess
didn't
so.
understand that there were multiple people. So, Wild Ride, the Quaid brothers really in the late 90s decided to just be in random films, including Magical Legend of the Leprechauns and Dragonheart, which was nominated for an Oscar. So you're
Interesting.
welcome, world. And they've made so many new there was a Dragonheart movie in 2020, Laura. That's
Interesting.
too
Okay.
late for a Dragonheart movie. Um, and it had
There's
Helena
some of
Bonham
these stories
Carter
that
in
people like
it.
hold on to.
Yeah, but like I don't think any of the Dragonheart films after the original one were well received. Like I don't know who's watching them.
Hmm.
Because it's not me. I only watched the first two.
She lies on our podcast. Where, if we were to look up where the most people are watching this, it is Wisconsin.
It's Wisconsin. It is Hannah's house. Um, yeah, it's just very wild. So those were some of the ones I watched. Yeah, we and I've also been rewatching Smallville
Uh-huh.
because I got sick recently and I just was like, yeah, I'll watch Smallville. And now I'm two seasons in and I'm like, what am I doing? Other than remembering how much I used to love Smallville. So those are what I'm really watching and or enjoying.
I forgot to bring up something, Hannah, that I watched recently. I watched on Netflix People We Meet on Vacation,
Ah,
and I really
yes.
liked it. And we're gonna do an episode on it. So I won't say
Guys,
anymore, but I really liked it.
join us next week for our TV Tuesday because we will be doing People We Meet on
It
Vacation.
was so fun.
Emily Henry, owner of Neck Alley, come on the show.
Emily Henry, movie star
Movie
and
star,
executive
apparently.
producer. Yes,
Uh,
Emily Henry makes an appearance in the
ah,
movie,
beautiful.
and they do not try to hide her. She is front and center.
Oh, good. It's not like her ordering a cup of coffee somewhere.
No, she is right in the middle of the shot.
Oh, beautiful.
Hmm.
Well, Laura, shall we dive into this depressing, depressing novel?
Yeah, I guess we gotta.
So, as a reminder, we left off with Frank leaving the funeral of Kevin, which is wild to think about with how much happens in the back half of this novel. But
Has the funeral happened already?
oh, it's not the
G-
funeral because the body doesn't get released. Like
I was gonna say the body hasn't been released.
the wake or
Yeah.
so, where they all are over at the parents' house because he
Hmm.
just died.
Hmm.
So Frank goes over to Olivia's house so he can see Holly, his daughter. He starts telling Liv what happened, that he lost his brother. When Holly interrupts them, he tells her that a brother of his that she doesn't know died, and she asks who. He says Kevin, and she starts screaming that Uncle Kevin was so nice and so wonderful. So it is obvious that she has met Kevin. This is one of the
Well,
most infuriating sections. I feel so bad for
I
Frank
hate
in
a
this
lot of
chapter.
this.
Because what was anyone thinking? Um,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
said,
this is so bad on his ex-wife's part too. Like, oh.
but also he didn't tell her enough. Like
Hmm.
he literally doesn't tell her ever on the page until the very end that like anyone in his family was abusive. Like
Hmm.
she hears it's quote unquote bad, but like he knows his dad is abusive. Jackie covers it up when she's talking to Liv. If he had actually been open with her, there was no clear dialogue. So
Well,
like
and it's one of those things too where we're kind of given the impression that Liv is very much like, well, you told me they were poor. It can't be that bad. I'm not that
right.
much of a stuck-up rich person. And she comes from a very privileged background, but I think she was just kind of assuming that Frank was embarrassed about
Yes.
growing up in poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she met with Jackie, and I think Jackie is a little bit in denial. I think some of
Oh
them are
yeah.
in denial in this situation where they want to connect with Frank's daughter, but they're like, "Oh, it's not that bad. Like, oh,
Yeah.
we're a fine family." And it's like, no, we need to respect her father's wishes to not have this child near
Right.
them.
Well, because I even put there is like we find out in the most horrifying way that Liv was letting Jackie bring Holly around to the family, which is a huge violation.
Hmm.
But at the end of it, Frank doesn't tell Liv why that's a bad idea. Um, but they have a heart to heart about how he knew she liked that his family wasn't around when they first met. And she does agree that it was easier at first, but then like Holly wants an attachment to her family, and that does matter. Um, and we also find out
At the
that
same time, though,
Liv,
in my mind, it's just not her
oh,
place to
no,
get the child involved in that. Like I can understand the child being like, "I want to know my father's family." That happens. However,
huge
this is
violation.
a child, and you aren't just like, "Well, she really wanted it, so I couldn't help but give in despite what you wanted." Like, no, no, no.
It's it's awful. Like neither one of them made a good decision in this. Like it was so bad. Because to
I'm
think that
putting less
like,
blame on Frank though in this situation because
oh
I'm
no,
like,
no, I meant Jackie and
"Oh,
Liv.
oh,
Like
okay,
Jackie
got
and
you."
Liv were both terrible in this because in my mind it's like there's no excuse. And I'm sorry, if he feels that strongly, there has to be a reason. He like
Yeah.
even like he didn't tell you, but at the same time, you just believed what Jackie said
Well,
about the family. And like
yeah,
that's
that's what
also
I'm
not
kind of thinking
healthy.
too, where it's like, yeah, I get it that, like, okay, so I agree with you, Hannah, that once he finds out that Olivia has been allowing Jackie to take Holly near the family, that he should have opened up and been like, yeah, this is why I did not want her
Right.
around them. He should have opened up then. However, I don't know that he needed to provide reasoning before that. She should have just respected
I
that
think she should have
that
respected, but it is strange to me that like it goes back to the like different like layers of
mhm,
abuse and how people react to abuse because like
mhm.
they were married, they were in a partnership, and he never opened up to why he wasn't involved with his family. And so it does make sense of like why they're divorced because it's like, well, you guys didn't share or discuss any of these
It
things.
also just makes sense to me too that he wouldn't even bring it up because of all the trauma of it all growing up in that situation. So I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of I'm torn but leaning more towards Frank
I
didn't
don't
need
think
to
Liv
confide some
was
of this
in
and I'm
the
understanding of
right.
why he didn't.
But like it is strange if they ever talked about Holly going around that he wouldn't have told her because also like it's like one of
Hmm.
those where yes, trauma, but if you're raising a daughter to get, you know, like it is
Sure.
I think Liv is still very much in the wrong, but there were parts of me where it's like tell her. Like she also like if she's bringing the daughter around, she does have a right to know as well, you know.
Mm.
But he does we also learned that Liv was prosecutor when they met. He stays over and the next day he talks to Holly about the family. Kevin helped her with the boy problem, Shay helps her with math, and the younger kids are fun. She's like, I don't really care about Carmel. Like,
Yeah.
um, but he reminds her that
She,
it's
which who is that attached to like random aunts and uncles that they've
oh yeah, no. No.
never met before?
Um, He reminds her that it's okay to have some secrets, but sometimes a person has a right to know a secret, and he had a right to know that secret. And she is very much a 9-year-old where she's like, well,
Hmm.
if I told you, you wouldn't have let me go. And he's like, yeah, I had that right. Like, what if we just up and moved you? Like, that's also not okay.
She's
Um,
at the age where she's starting to kind of discern for herself what information she wants to give and
mhm.
and it's a really tricky age because it's also like a dangerous age.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Where it's like trying to explain to a child what should be kept secret and
Mhm.
what shouldn't and how to protect yourself. It's really messy.
And it's always hard to like teach kids. I know, like, it's just because there's certain things you have to teach kids growing up where it's like, well, you can have surprises, but there are good surprises and bad like because
Well,
it
it's
is
one of
trying
those
to
things
teach.
like lying. We tell kids
Yeah,
don't lie. However, I feel like it's okay to tell kids to lie if it protects their safety.
right,
So, like, to explain that to children is difficult, where it's like there's a difference between lying to get out of doing something or lying because you just want to benefit from it. There's
right,
if you're lying to protect your safety, a la like somebody wants you to come into a locker room with them, like an adult wants you to come into a locker room with them, and you say, "Oh no, I can't because my mom is waiting outside," and that's not true. Like that protects your safety
right,
that you're not alone with an adult in a shady place. Like
right.
those types of lies are okay, but lying about other things, it's along those lines where it's like, how do we convey that to children? Like the difference between this secret and this secret.
I was impressed that like French did that a little bit with this, where he's like,
Hmm.
well, some people have a right to know like things, and
Yeah.
you have to think about that as well. He thinks through everything he knows right now, listening to the voicemails from Kev for the first time. He talks about how something changed from when they originally talked, and he thinks about like who he spoke with during that time, all of those things. And he also thinks about how Rosie's suitcase got in the fireplace because he didn't have a good timeline on how that could have happened.
Hmm.
So he goes and he visits her old friend Imelda, who Rosie walked to work with each day. And like no one really knew her whereabouts during the timeline for Rosie. Uh,
Hmm.
we we find out that Imelda looks ugly. That is very important because it's
Which I don't
repeated
know why
so
this was a
often.
necessary
Um,
detail.
it's like, oh, she's lived a rough life. But Frank is Frank, and he's like, so where'd you stow your suitcase in number 16? Because I know you did it. And he like plays it off as
Hmm.
Rosie told him. Frank throughout this entire section is just like lots of people underestimate me and I'm willing to just like throw stuff out there and I get
Sure.
away with it. So she does say that Rosie told her a couple days before they left that they were eloping and her dad was watching her too much. So Imelda was able to smuggle the suitcase out and hide it for her in the
Hmm.
fireplace. It was supposed to be in the fireplace or the basement. Um, and then Frank asks who she told because he didn't say anything to anyone and neither did Rosie. So that means Imelda told. And Imelda like screams at him. She's like, I don't squeal. How dare you?
Hmm.
She grabs a bread knife, saying she's been quote unquote warned about him, and he leaves.
Yeah, because there is like a shift in how Frank is being perceived now after Kevin's death, because him being tied to Rosie and now with his brother dying, a lot of people in the community are very suspicious of him.
Suspicious. And so then Frank gets a call from Steven from Murder Squad and they meet up. So Scorcher thinks that it's definitely Kevin who murdered Rosie and then couldn't take it and committed suicide. He's sending up for the files to kind of be reviewed and approved. So Frank has 3 days to pretty much change their minds on who murdered Rosie because he really doesn't think it's Kevin.
Hmm.
He does
That's
ask,
just like kind of the easiest timeline to put together, honestly.
yeah. And so then he asks Stephen what Stephen's thoughts are, and he points out that he's not convinced. So the second page they found in Kevin's pocket has zero fingerprints on it, which makes zero sense if
Right.
Kevin was the one with it. It means someone wiped it down and put it in there. And there were other fingerprints on the suitcase, which we do know is Imelda's, so like that doesn't point
Hmm.
anywhere. And um like through it all, Frank at least admits he's biased, but he's kind of doing it in one of those like, I know I'm biased, so obviously that means I'm not biased. And it's like, well, that's not exactly what
Still
that
biased.
means.
Yeah.
Uh, then Stephen mentions this person had to have, if it was the same person who killed Rosie as killed Kevin, this is a violent person who was always violent because people crack the same way each time.
Hmm.
Frank points out that they were killed in different ways, and he's like, yeah, but they still died in very like emotionally charged moments.
Yeah.
So like he kind of goes on like, oh, the age could be anywhere from this age to like 30 or 40. And Frank has a flashback to his dad shoving Shay's head into the wall and remembers that this is how
Hmm.
Rosie was killed. This would be consistent also with more violence the first time and a shove the second time because it's Kevin and it's less power. So
Right.
um, he goes out walking. He has a memory of the first time Rosie brings up moving to England, and like them becoming roadies together and him just agreeing immediately and knowing he's going to spend the rest of his life with her. And then he
Yeah,
goes
he was
and
just like so in love that he would do anything she said, basically.
then he goes and he throws rocks on Rosie's sister Nora's window, who is staying at the parents'.
Hmm.
She reveals to him why their dads hate each other because Frank's dad used to go out with Rosie's mom. And
This was
then
a twist I didn't expect.
yeah, I don't think I expected it either. I don't think I remembered it. But then they also commiserate over how they feel the loss of a sibling that they didn't know
Yeah.
before they even lost them. Which I thought
Hmm.
was kind of except and then they make out, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's one of those things too, though, where I feel like he very much is seeing Rosie in her and
Yes.
longing for Rosie, and he regrets it immediately. Like he's like,
Yes.
no, should not be happening.
This, weirdly enough, didn't bother me as much as I think it would have in other
I wasn't
storylines.
bothered by any of this.
Yeah, because it made sense. Like they're both commiserating. They're both having this like very sad moment where they're talking about how like no one seems to understand, but the other one
Hmm.
does. And then they just like have this soft moment where like they do make out, but then like she breaks it apart. She's like, I have to go. It's like she has like a baby at home with her husband,
Hmm.
and like the husband doesn't get why she's so upset. And it just felt like a deep-seated moment of like connection. So it didn't
Right.
really bother me at all. But it was like I wasn't expecting it. So
I will say, like, even mentioning, like, okay, we were upset about Olivia and Jackie, what they did to Frank and everything with Holly. I don't know that I'm like upset in terms of the plot and French writing this. I'm just more upset with like the actions the characters take because I think that so much of this book just makes sense and is really well written.
it's so well written and it does make like it makes sense that Jackie did what she did. It makes
Yep.
sense that Liv did what she did. I'm actually just mad at the people.
That's what I'm getting at. It's just me
Yeah.
being mad at the characters, like when we were talking about that earlier, and you saying like I'm not mad about this situation. I'm like I don't know that there's any situations in this book where I'm like I'm mad about this situation in the context of like Tana French, how dare you? It's not like that. It's more
No.
like you're mad at the characters, like how dare you characters?
I'm
Like come
so
on.
mad at Shay for murdering Rosie and then being like, I fucked her. Like, what were you thinking, dude? This is so mean. Sorry. Um, just so mean. But Frank goes over and he talks to his mom the next day. It is rough. She's giving him guff about his divorce, about how he
Yeah.
never comes around, about Kevin and
She's like, you're never
spoiled
going to be
her.
able to receive communion again. Are you happy about that? At least I can still receive communion. And Frank's like, I don't care about that. He's like, you have a terrible marriage.
Well, like the dad's literally sleeping in the next room, and and so he does get her to reveal the backstory with Rosie's mom and Frank's dad.
Rough.
So they were going out way back when it was a
Hmm.
different time, and Rosie's mom was probably a little bit wild. Like she just liked flirting with boys and going out with
Hmm.
boys. But she and Frank's dad were going. like fishing, and allegedly their car broke down and they stayed overnight in the car because they couldn't get home safely.
Yeah.
And this was seen as ruinous back then.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that he should have just married her, because
well, that was
he ruined her reputation.
Frank said, "Well, wouldn't they have just gotten married?" And she said, "Well, yeah, except they didn't think Frank's dad was good enough, and so they refused to let him marry her, and they just
Hmm.
beat him up instead."
Yep.
And so then Rosie's mom got with Rosie's dad, who had kind of been like in the wings and obsessed with her.
Yeah.
Um, but around this time, so like he just lost his girl who was like very popular. He was well loved
Hmm.
amongst the ladies. Um, it's alleged that Rosie's dad killed one of his jobs as a like he could have gotten a job
He
as a
had an
driver
opportunity
at
to get a
Guinness.
job at Guinness, and
Yes.
that was just kind of blown out of the water for him.
Yep. And this is all alleged. Like it does you don't know what happened, but like
Yeah, you're getting one person's side of the story.
and the mom's version, and she's very loyal to her because she's also like
who could who we could like very easily not believe.
yes, but she's also like, well, your dad was such a good looker and I wanted to be with him so bad and then I
But I
got
was
him.
14, so I
Yeah.
had to wait.
When you're 17 and the 15-year-old wants to have sex with you. um
And then she was like,
but
by the time I was 17, it's okay. Like, yikes. All right.
and so Frank realizes that his dad now has motives and means because he starts thinking like, well, he had the marriage he didn't want. He had the life he
Hmm.
didn't want. Like he probably became an alcoholic if he didn't get the Guinness job. It's all this like shoulda, woulda, coulda. Have. And
And you can kind of see the chain of events kind of unraveling, where you're like, oh, all right, well, the pieces are falling into place. It would make sense that he
yes.
became the product that he is now if these things kind of fell apart for him earlier on that he dreamed of.
So then he thinks about how he would have found out, and he's like, "Oh, it has to be Imelda." Um, and he thinks like, "Well, Imelda might have been running around with my dad at the time. He wasn't like disgusting, and like it could be possible."
Hmm.
Um, and they also discuss Holly while he's there, and he kind of talks about like how he could have sat with his mom because she's good company when she's quiet. And it's like, oh
Well,
dear.
you know
Uh,
what? There is something to this, though, of having a relationship with a relative that you're like, you are very miserable to be around. However, you do still keep going back to them and participating in their company. And
yeah.
there's something about the familiarity of that person and just having shared life experiences and being around each other that you fall back into this like, when we're quiet, it's actually just nice to be in the same space with each other. We know so much about each other. I really liked that moment too, honestly.
No, it all makes sense. And so Frank calls around to Imelda again, and he's like, "I'm here, and I'm not going to leave until you come out." And so she calls the cops on him, and
Obviously, yeah.
Scorcher comes around, and Scorcher kind of tells Frank that Imelda says that Frank's harassing her, and she
He's
also
like,
told
they
us,
said that you've been doing a bunch of weird hand gestures out front.
I it's so funny, and she ended up telling Scorcher a story that Kevin once told her he had a thing for Rosie and he liked her so much. And she ended up telling him about Frank and Rosie being together. And she knew the entire time. Like, it's one of those where she's obviously making herself to be the main character in
Yep.
this. And, like,
Hmm.
oh, I knew the entire time. Of course,
Hmm.
Rosie told me. And,
I was
like,
her only confidant. Like,
and Frank is kind of like, okay, I'm gonna like tie one on with Scorcher because Scorcher's gonna believe that I believe him if I like lay it on
hmm
thick. And so he's just like, oh, I can't believe this all happened. And he drops Scorcher off. Um, and this is where he's like, everyone always underestimates me, but like, I do know what I'm doing. And so he goes round to Imelda's the next day. He uses her fear of him against her, throwing things through her TV
he
and,
breaks her TV.
yep, and telling her that he doesn't buy the Kevin story. He talks about how he can tell she's been, like, in his mind, he's like, you can tell she's been hit before because she does feel like she's in danger with
Well,
him.
she flinches.
Yeah. And he is like, okay, who do you think I killed? Like you obviously think you were warned against me. I think you think I killed Kevin. Like I pushed him out of the
Hmm.
window, something happened. And so like if you think that, why aren't you telling me the truth? Because I'm telling you, I
Hmm.
don't believe you. And she admits that she told Shay about him and Rosie eloping.
Yep.
That they were out at a bar and she kind of did it to impress him a little bit, to like give him a hard time. And like he started giving her attention and she always had a huge crush on him. And
Hmm.
so she told him about them running away together. And he's like, well, at least did you get sex out of it? Like, did my brother at least sleep with you for telling him this? And he did, and it's just like very
Sure.
sad because he just knows immediately. And Imelda kind of knows now. Like, she was
Yeah.
being a little bit in denial as well.
Well, and it's sad too when you think back to how Frank was thinking about his father
Hmm.
beating Shay into the wall and
Yep.
thinking that it was his father. And now we know,
That is
oh,
shame.
Shay is repeating what happened to him.
And so he just like, you can tell his brain is melting. He feels very torn up about all of
Yeah.
this. He talks about how like he wants to like burn down 16 Faithful Place. And he also has a memory of when he and Rosie decided to keep their relationship secret and how they did it for so long. Um, and it's just like kind of him reeling as he decides what to do next. So he does call Steven back. They have a chit chat where he's like, hey, I'm giving up on everything. We're not doing this anymore. Because like Steven's like, okay, I really don't believe that your brother did it because it's just not adding up. And he's like, okay,
Hmm.
now you're gonna let it die. Like, let Scorcher do what Scorcher's gonna do. This is
Yep.
over. And you need to move on. And Steven like doesn't back down where he's like, hey, you agreed to help me. And he's like, I will, but not if you tell anyone about this. Like, I have you over a barrel, and this is just
Hmm.
how it is. So um then he goes over and he picks up Holly from Liv's house. And Holly starts talking about how she wants to go over to Sunday night dinner because she heard about Sunday night dinner. She heard it's a huge thing with the grandma and
Her
she wants
cousins
to.
have kind of played it up, and she's like,
Yep.
I want to be involved. Why don't I ever get to do anything cool?
And she talks and she's like upset over Kevin, and she's like, and they talk about like how Kevin's not there anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and she also asks some questions about Rosie, about their relationship and if they were going to be married. And she asks questions like, would I still be here if you had been with her? And he's like,
Hmm.
I don't know, but I think like you would have existed no matter what. It's like a very like nice parent conversation where
Honestly, he
it's,
handles this so well.
I know.
He handles this so well. And I was actually pretty impressed by French's writing of this because it's very much a good example of like a child having deep-seated fears and jealousy
Hmm.
and being like, stop caring about your ex-girlfriend, Dad. I don't want you to care about her. I want you to care about my mom. And I want you to think about why you exist, and it is because of me. You exist to love me.
Yep.
Stop thinking about your ex.
It's so sad because it is such like a 9-year-old view of
Yes.
it, of like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't, I wouldn't want you to be with her. And he's like, well,
Right.
I'm not. And like, and she asks like, do you love her more than mom? And he's like, well, no, I just love her differently than I loved your
Which is
mom.
a
Like,
perfect way to say it.
yes. And he was just like, she was like a first love, and they talk
Mm-hmm.
about like Kevin and how she doesn't always cry when she thinks about him, and she's just kind of going through it. Um and he's thinking about like, okay, well, if I have to go to Sunday dinner, I can't beat up Shay. I can't let it on. But he does say that they can go over. And the entire time
Mm-hmm.
he sees that like Shay is on edge with him in the house.
Yeah.
They're decorating for Christmas. All the kids leave for a while. Um, and he does like have Jackie go outside where he's like, why? What were you thinking? Like, what were you doing? We have
Yeah.
to talk through this. This was not okay. And Jackie's like, I just wanted Holly to meet the family. I thought like if it didn't happen more than once or twice, like you never had to know about it. And then it just kept happening and I was scared of you. And it
And we
does
just
show
love her
like,
so much and we just want to be around her. And
and Frank is like, okay, but like, why are you afraid of me? And she's like, I don't know. I just was. And it does show
Mhm.
like there's just so much trauma related to this household of like
Yeah.
people can't share with each other. And they
And
just
you
want
know,
to hide things from
they
each
all
other.
immediately fall back on fear because they're so used to the abuse of their father. They immediately fall back on fear
Hmm.
that they're worried about a violent reaction
Yeah.
to anything that they do. So it's immediately fearful. And
Right.
it's so hard when you're used to that type of thing to recognize that not everyone reacts this way, that sometimes it's okay to have conversations when
Yep.
you've messed up.
Yep. And so then like all of the kids sit outside for a little bit, where like Carmel's asking Frank if he's back for good, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm round. Aren't I round right now?" And
Hmm.
he's kind of doing it just to mess with Shay, and it's definitely
Yeah.
working. He talks about how like he's been around
Shay's
to
like
see.
jittery and
Hmm. And Shay brings up like, "Oh, I heard you went around to Imelda's house." And he's like, "Oh yeah, she's the worst. Like can't trust her, you know."
hmm.
And he makes fun of like anyone who would sleep with her because Shay's slept with her.
Yep.
Um and Shay's like kind of just being a little rude and icy to Frank, and it's just like it's all kind of coming round and round.
Hmm.
Um oh, and then he also starts asking about what Kevin was doing the night of. And he kind of figures out that like Kevin asked Shay to like meet him later because he was on edge and he just wanted to talk to his brother about what was going
Hmm.
on. And so there's like no doubt in Frank's mind that
Yeah.
Shay killed Kevin now. Um, and so Frank is just kind of doing the dinner thing, and then he realizes that Shay is missing, and so is
So it's
Holly.
Holly.
So he starts going up the stairs to kind of get Holly away from Shay and get
Well, because
everyone
he's really
down.
nervous at this point, because at this point he knows now that Shay is the killer. And so,
Yes.
honestly, my mind turned to the worst too at this point, where I'm like, is something going to happen to Holly in this moment?
Oh, and but right before this, the dad talks to Frank,
Oh,
and it's kind of revealed that the dad probably knows that Shay did it as well, because he's
yeah.
just like, "I think you should leave. I don't think you should come round anymore until you
Hmm.
figured out what you're doing, and you're not going to mess up our family." He also talks about how he's like suicidal. He's never going into a home. Like it is kind of just like
Hmm.
a laying of the land of like the dad thinks he is in control of this situation, and he thinks he can tell Frank what to do at this point.
Well, it's so tragic because he does have a moment where he like snaps at Frank and
Hmm.
Frank jumps even and he's like I immediately reverted back to how I reacted to him as a child when he would
Hmm.
snap at me. But there's still like this traumatic relationship between them even though there's years of separation
Hmm.
where Frank does feel fearful of him but is still navigating, like okay, it's been all this time. I'm an adult. I know why he is the way he is and then trying to also reconcile feelings of like he wants me to not snitch on this
Hmm.
situation in order to maintain face and semblance of our family when he doesn't recognize that the reason our family is a hot mess is because of the
Because
things
of
that he
him.
put us through.
Well, and like, there's just no, he's just like, "Oh, this is no way to live." And Frank's like, "I bet if you stopped drinking, you would live."
Hmm.
And it's just a very specific look at abuse and
Yeah.
alcoholism and all of the above. So, he does go up
Heartbreaking.
and he hears Holly working on her math homework with Shay. And she starts asking about, like, what was Rosie like? And, did daddy really, like, did he love her? Were they gonna get married? These types of things. And she reveals to Shay that she was up in his room one time and she found the letter that Rosie wrote.
Yeah.
And she never told anyone about it. She kept it secret. And Shay asks, "Are you going to tell anyone?" And she says, like,
Hmm.
"No, I'm actually glad that Rosie's dead. I didn't want her to exist." And it is like
Hmm.
what you're saying, a 9-year-old being like, "That's my daddy. I love him. He should never have loved anyone before me," kind of
Yeah.
energy. And he tells him that she tells him that she's never going to tell anyone. And then Frank walks in and tells her to go downstairs, and it like almost leaves her head immediately that like this huge tension came in.
Hmm.
um but then
Well, because it's very much a child not understanding the power of what is happening in the moment and
mhm.
the power of her being like, I'm not going to tell anyone your secret, where it's like, that is a huge thing. And she doesn't really understand secrets.
Well, and she also doesn't understand it because at one point she's like
She doesn't
she
understand death, honestly.
no, she doesn't. And she's talking to Shay and she's just like, "I won't ever tell." Like, and Frank realizes that she set it all up to tell Shay that she knew. Like, she had brought the
Hmm.
math homework over. She had like convinced him to bring her over and like had waited until the weekend to do this. So like she's kind of
Yeah.
setting it up because she thinks she understands what's going on, but she
Well,
doesn't.
and yeah, she does say that too. Like you said, I think you might have said that she even says like, "I wanted Rosie to be dead. I don't want her
Hmm.
to be alive." It's kind of like I'm on your side. I know about this thing, and I'm on your side. Just kind of confirming you're on my side too, right? You you like me better than you would have liked other kids that my dad had, right?
And so Frank walks in and he starts talking to Shay about this and he's just like, you know, how how could you do all of this? Like what
Hmm.
happened? And Shay starts showing that he is incredibly resentful of Frank because Frank was going to get out when this was his turn to take care of the family. And he never appreciated everything Shay did for him and all the sacrifices that Shay and Carmel did for the family. And Frank is like, he's not, he doesn't get it. He doesn't get like all that Shay has had to do. And
He took a
Frank
lot of
has a,
beatings for them. He didn't get to get an education. He had to be the one that, you know, now is the one like bathing his father and
Mhm.
everything. Ugh.
And Frank is kind of taunting Shay back, where he's like, you say you did all of this stuff for the family, but do you know what Kevin remembered? You locking us in the basement when he was 2 years old at 16 Faithful Place. And Shay has this
Hmm.
moment where he's like, well, do you remember what happened? Like, dad had gotten fired that day, mom had kicked him out. And then he beat the door down, and we were scared that you guys would be beaten to death. And so I locked you two in there. And so you're so resentful that I saved your life that
Hmm.
you guys just had to sit in the basement. And Frank does point out where he's like, you could have taken us to a neighbor's house. And he was like, and like run the entire like neighborhood with gossip that our family was breaking
Yeah.
apart. And like Shay was 8 when this happened. And he talks about how hard that was. Like he was
Hmm.
8 years old and his mom was telling him he was the man of the house. And so that's what he kept doing.
This is
Um,
like such a heartbreaking thing because you can see in this moment like why Shay has all this resentment and also like the eyes opening for Frank where he has known that there's this resentment there, but he's like, yeah, we all had a bad childhood. But when you're the younger sibling, you don't recognize why some of these things happened, you know, where Frank didn't recognize, oh, that's what was happening to you, like that you were protecting us from being beaten. Okay, no
but
idea.
it's also a weird thing where Shay also is kind of stuck back there as well. Because when Shay's talking about it, he still 100% falls behind. I was right to do what I did. And it's weird to hear that from like, and I understand why from like an abusive
Hmm.
standpoint and like having to defend yourself. But it
Yeah.
is weird not to be like, I was 8, I was just doing the best I could, to be like, no, I was 8, but I was right. And to this day, I know what I did was right. And it's like,
I mean, but he was told from that age, you know, you're the man of the house. He
yeah,
became an
but like,
adult before he was an adult. And so then I think there's like this confirmation in your own mind of like, yeah, I was making mature decisions. I was doing this thing, even though it's not true. And you're not able to reconcile that. You know what I mean? He's not able to have that reasoning of like, oh no, I was an 8-year old and I was
but
doing
I think
as
it shows
well as
why
I
he did
could.
what he did as an
Yeah.
adult to Kevin and why he did what he did to Rosie. Because I
Yeah.
do
He
think
never
like,
overcame any of his trauma.
yeah, because I don't think other people might have overcome their trauma and seen like, well, I know what I was doing
Or maybe
was
not
my
overcome, but
best.
dealt with. I shouldn't
Dealt,
have
yeah.
said overcome, but dealt
But
with.
like I think other people could have dealt with their trauma and been like, oh, like, yes, I was doing the best I could, but like, I don't think I would make that decision now as an adult. But I
Hmm.
think it's very interesting that he holds on to it and he was like,
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't do that to the family. I wouldn't do and he doesn't understand that like he's so deeply resentful because he's made those decisions. And like, it is very interesting because there were certain, and obviously this comes from a place of trauma. He was horribly abused by the dad,
Hmm. Yeah.
but like
That's where it all stems from.
certain phrasings he was using were like also certain phrasings the dad was using of like, well, I had this happen to me, and it's not like taking ownership of what you've actually chosen to do in your life.
It's
um
a lot of, he considers himself a victim and a hero at the same time.
yeah.
And he thinks, you know, that as the hero, he provided a better life for his siblings that, they didn't have to have it as bad as him. They still had it bad,
Yeah.
but he thinks of himself as more of a victim. And he may have been more of a victim, but he's unable to recognize that other people in this situation were very much traumatized too.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's also like it go because as he talks through this, he talks about like what happened with Rosie, and we find out that Shay had always thought that his turn was about to be done, that it was now Frank's turn to be the man of the house and to take care of everyone. And he was coming to terms with that, and he was going to finally get out. And then he found out that Rosie and Frank were leaving. And even then, he was like, I could see you moving down the lane. Like, that's totally fine. But, like, then you still needed to take care of everyone until Kevin was there to step in and take care of everyone.
Hmm.
And someone had to be there for mom. And I do think that that makes sense from like, you want to take care of your parent. But it also is deeply sad to be like, mom will never leave him. So now we have to protect her, where it's like the,
This, I think,
yeah,
often happens in situations where, like, I would say the abused parent leans on the eldest child to
yes.
support them when they don't have the support from a spouse or a
Yes.
partner. So I do totally see why Shay would have these feelings of we need someone to protect our mom. I've been doing this. Frank, it's your turn. I've done it for so long. You need to step up.
But it is also like ignoring how the other children feel or how they're all children because like you didn't
Oh,
get your childhood. So
absolutely.
he's also
Yeah.
like, well, no one else deserves a childhood. Or like at least
Well,
the sons in the house do not deserve the childhood because they
and
have to
it's
step
very
up.
much, again, falling back into that, like, I've been a victim. It's time for other people to suffer what I've suffered through because it's their time. I've done my
Yeah.
time. Now it's their turn to do their time,
Yep.
which no
And
one should have to do any amount of time.
no, exactly. And that is like what it comes down to of like it was horrible that this happened to him, but it also shouldn't have
Hmm.
happened to any of them.
Right.
And so he goes into number 16 to convince Rosie to not do this, to leave. He tells her like about it being Frank's time that they just need to wait a while. And Rosie
Hmm.
kind of tells him like, "No, that's not how this works." And she's fighting with him and he talks about how he just wanted her to stop talking and listen to him because
Hmm.
he just felt like if he could get her to listen, she would change her mind. And then all of a sudden she was dead. Um, and so then he saw the letter, he realized it was fate. And like, this is something that like Frank brings up where he's like, you keep saying fate, but like, was it fate that like it got put into Kevin's pocket? Was it fate? Like, you made these choices. Like, you
Right.
can't just say that it's God's will that like this happened to you. Um, and like, Shay doesn't even want to admit that like he murdered her because in his mind, like, it just was something that got out of control. Um,
Hmm.
and Frank talks about how, like, well, you still lost me. Like, I still left that night. Like, you didn't even get what you wanted out of it. Um,
Hmm.
and he goes into like Shay keeps trying to be like it was an accident, it was an accident, and Frank just says that he doesn't believe it because
Yeah.
the letter ended up in Kevin's pocket. Shay brought that with him to confront his brother. He knew what was going to happen on some level and still decided to do it. So,
There was a degree of planning that
mhm.
wouldn't have existed if it was an accident.
Yep.
So,
And he goes into like, what did Kevin do? Did he tell you that he just remembered his two brothers being gone that night? And then he remembered it again once Rosie's body was found and he just wanted to talk to you. And he kind
mhm.
of taunts Shay. And Shay does have like a very specific view of Kevin where he was like, he was weak. And you do not understand that he was weak. He could have just dealt with this. Um,
Which
and
is a lot of times, I think, how I think especially brothers will perceive a youngest brother,
mhm,
where it's like they had it so easy because, and this does exist sometimes in large families too, where the parents are tired by the time they
yeah.
get to number five.
Oh,
So
I was an
they're,
oops baby at number 4, and it is often talked about how I got away with so much because
yeah,
because they had already raised 3 children, and I
yeah.
do think like that is true, and I
So
also think that
yeah,
there's
him
something,
saying
yeah,
that about like his youngest brother being like, he had it so easy, he was such a little wimp and all this stuff, like totally checks out that he would feel that way.
yeah. Well, and also like probably with the parents too, because if they weren't raising four children, like four other
Hmm.
kids during that time, then like, yeah, they're probably going to be a little bit nicer, have a little bit less stress. That
Hmm.
doesn't mean that Kevin didn't have it bad. It just meant he had it
Yep.
different and it wasn't as bad
Yep.
with Shay. Um, and so that's
It's different
when
levels of trauma, different kinds of trauma.
And so Shay starts saying that like Frank is just as bad as he is, that Frank is just as awful, that he like became a cop because of things that they've done before. And Frank is just kind of like, dude, I'm not a murderer. Like I didn't
Hmm.
murder two people. And he's like, but you almost did. And then we find out that right before Frank and Rosie were about to run away, he and Shay had started talking about murdering their father one night.
Yep.
That it just kind of came up where one of them had to be home before he got home from the bars, and they just talk about like how they could make it look like an accident. And that
Yeah.
entire summer they started planning what it would be, how to make it look bad, how to make it look like he fell down the stairs, how to get all the women and like Kevin passed out for the evening so they wouldn't hear anything. um and like Frank talks about like, yeah, it was pretty smart for like two kids. We probably still would have been caught, but like at
Hmm.
the time there was just no way out, and so that was what we saw. But then Rosie did give him another opportunity to get out, and he took it.
Yeah.
And so Shay like beat the crap out of him when he told him he wasn't going to go through with it anymore. It was a whole thing. And you could tell that like Shay deeply believes that they would have killed their dad if it hadn't been for
Yeah.
Rosie. And he thinks that Frank feels guilty about this. And Frank points out of like, hey, all we did was talk. Like we didn't do any of it. Like, yes, we researched, we discussed, but like I could go into any police station and they wouldn't arrest me. I didn't go through with it. Like life has changed. And it is one of those where it's like they could have gone through with it, but they
Hmm.
didn't in this reality. Um, and
Well, and it's
so
very much a situation where Shay is kind of devastated that they never went through with it because
yes.
in the reality that they did go through with it, he sees himself having a better life and not
Yes.
being stuck there.
Well, and then Shay still very much believes that he's going to get out of this, where he's like,
Oh yeah, he had it
I'm
planned. He
about
was
to be
going to
out.
buy a
I
place
I'm about
and
to buy a place. I'm about to get out of here, and you like it's all going to come up for me now.
hmm.
And
He's
Frank's
like, "This
just
is
like,
my year. It's happening."
Frank's like, no, you're not. That's not going to happen. You're going to jail. And he's like, why? Who's going to believe you? Who's going to believe your daughter? And he was like, who said you were getting out of this alive?
Hmm.
And Frank pulls out his gun and they start fighting. And Shay very much like at a couple different points realizes that Frank means it, that he may kill him today.
Yeah.
Um, and like blood is spilt on both sides, and Frank starts screaming at Shay about everything. And then Shay hits him and the gun goes off. But there's a moment where Frank doesn't know what happened, but then everything clears and he did not shoot Shay.
Hmm.
But he does hit him over the head with the gun, knocks him out, cuffs him, and then he calls Steven to come get Shay. Um, and he comes over, he tells him everything that happened, and he also like it's very sad because after he tells Steven to come over, he cleans up Shay so that the neighborhood won't have to see all
Well,
of
he
this
takes pictures
mess.
of him first. He takes pictures of
Yes.
him and his brother first as proof for the police, and then he
Yes.
cleans him up because he's like, "We still have to save face here." And then he's like, Stephen gets there and he's like, "Okay, you have to give me a little bit of time to get myself and my daughter out of here because I
And
don't want
so
her to see this, and then you can take him out."
And so he does get Holly out of there. He goes and he sits with her in the car and he kind of just gives her a rundown of like, here's what's going to happen. You may have to talk to my friend Steven about what you just told Uncle Shay. And she's like, well, I don't want to. I shouldn't have to. And he's like, well, I understand that that's how you feel, but sometimes you just have to do things because it's the right thing to do. And what Uncle Shay did might have been bad. And so you need to tell the truth. Like, this is just the way the
Hmm.
world is. Um, and she kind of like she starts crying because she does hate Rosie in her mind. She is glad that she's dead. Um, and she
She's
doesn't
dealing with
want
so many
Shay to go
emotions
to
too.
jail. Like, yeah.
I mean,
Um,
she's lost an uncle. She's reuniting with this family that she didn't think she was going to have as anything but a secret. And she's trying to decide how she feels about her dad's feelings for this long lost love.
mhm.
It's very emotional for her.
And so she's like talking about how she doesn't want it, how this was just a stupid note. She wish she had never seen it. And she's worried that the family's going to blame her for all of this.
Yeah.
And he's very much like, that this is not your fault, it's okay. But he takes her home that night. He kind of has like he makes her eat food, and he lets Liv put her to bed, and he kind of just like calls Steven. He gives him some ammo on how to, or how to like get behind Shay's defenses, where he's like, hey,
Yeah.
look, he loves the girls, um he hates me, but
He hates himself.
he really thought this was going to be his year, and he thought he was about to get out, so he's desperate.
Well, and
And
he mentions too that if there's one thing he hates a lot, it's himself,
yeah,
and to use that against him because this is what's I think most tragic about Shay is that Shay has been through so much, but he deeply resents himself and the situation that he is in
yeah,
and wishes for nothing more than to be a different person.
yeah. And so Stephen kind of thanks him, and then he goes inside and he tells Liv all about what happened. And this is so sad because she's like, how dare you not tell me? I put our daughter to bed and I acted like everything was normal. And he was like, I actually did it on purpose. Like, I wanted her to just have a little bit more normalcy for one more
Yeah.
night. Um, and they kind of just he tells her everything, and they have this moment where they're just kind of discussing things and what comes next, and he asks her out on a date during this time,
Well, he
because she
asked
just
her too.
broke
He's like,
up
"Can you
with
not discuss the case with her? I know you're going to want to, but I just don't want you to because it's not ethical
and
to do so."
she's
And
like,
she's like,
well, she won't talk
"I
to a
have to."
shrink, so I do have to. And he's like, okay, just like make sure that you don't tell people about it.
He's like, "I don't
um
know that you're doing that." Then is what the situation is.
yeah. And so they talk about like how hard it will be for Holly, all these things. And he leaves for the night, and their future is kind of up in the air. 'Cause she's like, well, if we're gonna do anything, we're not gonna tell Holly about it. Then he talks about how he did leave the family alone, while Steven got put the case together. He's kind of letting them like be on their own, but he does call, and he goes back to work. He does a deep
hmm
dive into like 100-hour work weeks. But
Yeah, he's getting a lot of cases and projects and everything.
he does call Jackie, and she says that their mom is kind of broken. She's incredibly quiet now. She doesn't really talk, and that she and the mom are doing their best to take care of the dad, but they can't really lift him up the way he needs to be lifted
Shay
up.
did all that.
Shaded all that. And so Frank is like, well, should I stop by to help? And she's kind of like, I don't think that that's a smart idea. I don't think they'll take that well. Um,
And she also kind of hints at that they don't think it's a good idea for Holly to be around either because
yeah,
they do actually kind of blame Frank and Holly for what has happened
yes.
to their family.
And it's kind of up in the air and if Shay will even be convicted because this is hard.
hmm
Um, but she's like, yeah, I wouldn't bring Holly around. And he's like, okay, but like Holly blames herself right now and she's 9. And so the family
hmm
can act this way, but you can't act this way because you wanted to be a part of my daughter's life. So are you going to act like this? And she said, oh no, I'll definitely go see Holly. And he's like, okay, make a plan next week. Like Frank does
Yeah.
not take names when it comes to Holly. He's just like,
When it
nope,
comes to
you're
his
gonna make
daughter, yeah.
yeah, he's like, you're gonna make plans with her, you're gonna go see her, and that's it. And then he does ask, like, are we done? And he is like nice about it, where he's like, Jackie,
hmm
I understand if we're done. I just need to know what footing we're on. And she does admit, like, I am upset, but that doesn't mean that we're done. I just need some time. And he said, like,
Yeah.
okay, I can give you time. Like, that's fine as long as I know what's what. Um, and so then he does go out and tries to buy um Imelda a new TV, and it's a really, really nice one. And the daughter won't take it because he's snitched on his big brother,
Yeah.
and the entire neighborhood thinks that that is a fate worse than death, which is so sad.
Well, it's just proof of how this community works in a way that's really toxic, honestly,
Yes,
that they would prefer it if he would have kept his brother's murders
secret. Yeah,
secret.
yep. Um, and so then he goes to see 16 Faithful Place one more time. He has a memory of like all of them back in the day and how his relationship with Rosie first started, where they
First
just
time
kind
they
of like
touched, right?
yeah, the first time they touched, they were all drinking there, they were all just kind of joking, and there's a moment where they decide to stay there together. Um, and then he just kind of leaves faithful place,
Hmm.
probably for the last time. Hoping he can find a way back home. But um, that's the end of the book. And I also think the author's note is very important. Tana French went deep on this one, and she talks about how Faithful Place was a place that existed, but it was on a different side of the river. She very much made it like its own unique place because she did not want to drag any actual community
Sure.
through the mud like this because it is a deep, deep
Hmm.
novel. So I do appreciate that author's note at the end. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And I appreciate
Laura.
at the end of it how Frank talks about going home because I think for a lot of people, home is complicated. And
Yeah,
so this is very much a story of going home and being home and how complicated home can be for people.
yeah. It's so sad. I mean, you knew from the start it was going to be Shay. Um,
Hmm.
it did feel like that's just where this was
I'm a
heading
lit
the
fit
entire
girl, so I
time.
could pick out the pattern.
Yeah. Um, and it's very sad to see this because it is very complicated.
Yeah, I feel so many. We'll talk about it next week, I'm sure, but I feel so many feelings for everyone, and I, yeah, it's so hard when you're in reading a book like this and you're trying to empathize with different people, and you can see every side where they're coming from, and you just feel so much for them because, like we said, nobody should have had to go through any of this,
No.
and unfortunately, they did.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for joining us as we discuss the plot of
I
Faithful
mean, this one was
Place.
so great.
It's so good. It's probably one of the better, like one of the
This is
best
my
books we've
favorite
ever
so
read.
far.
It's just so well done. Tana French, you're amazing. Thank you so much
Hmm.
for writing it. You can see why Frank is going to show up in at least another book.
I would
So,
read lots of books like this. I absolutely loved it. I'm a sucker for something depressing, apparently.
well, everyone, make sure that you are joining us next week for our TV Tuesday on People We Meet on Vacation, available on
Yes.
Netflix. So watch it before then. And then the day after, we will be covering the plot and characters of Faithful
Themes and
Place.
characters. Yeah.
Themes and characters, sorry.
Where did
Um,
the plot?
we already did so much of the plot. And just a little announcement. After we finish covering Faithful Place, we are having a bonus episode, an author interview. Monoquill Blackgoose is joining us. Monoquill is the author of To Shape a Dragon's Breath. And number two in this book series, To Ride a Rising Storm, is coming out on January 27th. And so we are having her on January 28th to discuss both books. So that will
Yes.
be our bonus for the month of January, and we are very
Really looking forward
excited.
to it.
So you can join us then. And if you are so kind, with all this upcoming content, to follow along with us at all of our social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky at OWWR Pod, or
We have a
check out.
Discord.
We have a Discord. We have a website, ourpod.com, and we
Hmm.
should have some new author highlights there soon. I have one coming out
Yay.
in the month of January, so please check that out. Uh, or if you would be so kind, please rate, review, and subscribe. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing is a great way to get other people to come join us on our discussion for the
And even
podcast.
just sharing really helps. We really appreciate all of that.
Yes, please do all of that and more. And we can't wait to talk more next week.
And thanks for listening today.
Bye.
Bye.